Hello, the game has started. It's me to go first. Pretty unpromising rack, but it's not quite as bad as it appears. I can play Knurl for 28, and that retained the X for score. Still not a good rack, slightly more balanced in terms of vowels and consonants, but I feel a long way from a bingo. But if I can play off the duplicate D and the X, then I might be getting closer. Is good. So I could play Doxed. Quite good to play off both Ds because D and G together aren't great. They lack synergy because they both feature in endings, G in ing and D in ed. So it's not good to have both on your rack. There's nowhere fabulous for my X. So Doxed for 30. Well, again, not a bingo-y rack. Quite a way off, but I will have options here. I could play Atigi or I could play Gate. Atigi better because it retains a consonant. Fortunately, my opponent is not zooming away with bingos. Takes an E, but I don't have one. I don't have an extension for Lox. Lox does take an F in front. So I've got Gator across here for 21, and I'm not seeing anything better. Fantastic! That is an amazing rack. Surely I am bingoing. Meg takes an S and Gator takes an S, so pretty hard for opponent to block both of those. And even if he manages that, he'll be creating a new lane. So Royale preferable because column 14 opens access to column 15. Meg takes an A and an S. So what if the blank were an A? Tapetes, possibly. Patties. Wow, no, dat is not good, otherwise patties would run all the way underneath. Tapetes doesn't. Okay, so opponent has opened a new lane in column 12. I think row L is going to score more. So I have patties and Megs. Any point in looking for anything better? I don't think so. So patties for 75. And pretty good. I have blouse in column 12, getting the Z doubled. That's going to be a bingo-y score. And it's not an obvious place for opponent to play. Opponents are often drawn to the opportunities created by the move their opponent has just played, and that has happened in this instance. So I have blouse in column 12. Has opponent created the opportunity for anything better? And better would be a play, for example, with an O under the J and the Z tripled. I'm not seeing one like that. So blouse for 64. Not great. Double D, double G. I didn't realise so many of those tiles were left. I thought I had a bit of a glut of them earlier. I have a 100-point lead. Blouse takes nothing in front. Mint takes nothing after it. If opponent's got an A or an O, then row N is an obvious place to score well. Indeed. Now, what do I have? Wow, that's a shame. I do have IG and IGD on my rack, but which begins IG and then fails under PAL. Jot is good. Pali is good, but I would need the I for the S. And I've got nothing which goes after A, which is either just W or S and W. So what am I going to do here? Not seeing anywhere at all for IGD, which would definitely sort the rack out. Well, what about playing it here? What about sticking a D in front? Still one blank to come. This may not be good, but if it's not, I can just pull off the D. And it is, and I draw the second blank and I have an amazing rack. Life is good. 16 minutes gone, 16 minutes left, 17 on opponent's clock, so I'm surely bingoing here. Let me just check if Ain takes an S, and it does. So I have straights in row O. What do I have in column 15? Maybe something even better. Well, G only takes an I after it. So, what if the blank were an O or an I or a U, the other vowels which go after G? So I, not seeing anything. O. Gosh, there certainly could be one with an O. Not seeing it. And what about U? Not seeing it. So, do I take out row O? Just one S to come. Column 15. Well, it's not a ridiculously good scoring place. But do I have any bingo at all down here? Certainly haven't identified one so far. It would need to end in an I or a blank. No, I'm not seeing it. So, do I have a 9-letter play beginning H-E? So that will be H-E-I-S. No, or H-E. Well, nothing obvious. So I have straights for 75. Wow, that's quite a rack. Pretty grim. I have picky on my rack, which is a way of playing off a lot of tiles, but I'm not seeing anywhere for that. Great, just 21 points, and opponent burns the last S, which is fantastic. And opponent's resigned. Wow. Okay, well, he was a long way behind. Always a shame when opponents do resign, but it happens. And the final score, 192 to my opponent, 321 to me, a winning margin of 129 points. So a huge, huge win. Let's see what I missed. So it was me to go fast, and I played Nerl, but I could have played Drunk, and that would have scored slightly more. Opponent's rack plays 4, and now I had Doxed for 30, but I could have played Detox, and although I mentioned D and G not being great, the 11-point difference in score means that Detox would have been better. But that's purely score and rack lead. Sticking an X there makes it much easier for opponent to score in row K. Opponent plays on, and now I have Gator at K9. That was my play. No bingo here for opponent. Opponent plays Ment, and I have a fantastic rack. And play Patties. So H12. Pettiest. Oh wow, column 12 down through this T. Interesting. So there were a few more points on offer. Opponent's rack plays Jane. Now I have Blouse for 64, which established, well, 120, 130 point lead. Pretty good. Nice rack for opponent. Plays Soul. Not such a great rack, but digged, scored well, and sorted the rack out. Opponent plays he, and now I have this fantastic rack. Striatal, e5. Wow, double onto the L. I certainly should have given consideration to that spot, and I didn't. And then beyond that, just a ton of bingos in the place where I played. But look at this, only 3 points difference in score, so I think actually row O better. Striatal creates a number of scoring opportunities for opponent. And I think this is where opponent resigned. No, he didn't. He played us. So let's just go back and have a look at this. Well, I'm not sure that's a great play. He doesn't keep a particularly good rack cleave, and the S is a valuable tile. So I suspect there were other candidate plays. Even a play of Furl in row E would have created 2 new lanes. And opponent does have the last S for Eds or Eames. So opponent plays us, and at that point he resigns, and this was my rack, and I didn't really have time to give good consideration here. So L12, Envy, would I have seen that? Not sure, but it's a decent score, and it's not a terrible rack leave given the starting position, but in any event, opponent does resign, and that is the end of the game. Now, it's the beginning of the month, so brand new video up on Patreon, and there's a whole series of videos on Patreon which are blitz games, 5 minutes each, so very different in character from this more traditional game, and they're always exciting. Well, the video which has been uploaded at the beginning of this month is quite extraordinary in terms of the final run of moves. So if you are a patron, do check that out. I think you'll be astonished by what happens in that game. I certainly was, as I experienced it. As always, the link to Patreon is in the description of this video below. And for as little as $1 a month, you can support this channel. The channel relies on the support of the patrons, and becoming a patron gives you access to the entire back catalogue of blitz games, plus the opportunity to be my opponent on the regular channel. So if you're not already a patron, please consider becoming one and helping to support the channel and enjoying the extra benefits of being a patron. So back to this game. Many thanks to my opponent for a good battle, although I probably will no play him for resigning, but that's not intended as any form of personal slight. And I hope you enjoyed watching this game, and I will see you next time.